Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about irrigation and for the garden and for your landscaping. And it's just going to be a quick introduction to what I use and the tools needed and that kind of thing. Nothing crazy, but we're going to dive into a little bit about what I use for irrigating not only landscaping but my raised beds as well. So let's get into it.
Hey guys, you're going to need a few generic things, and there's a lot more to this if you get crazy, but the basics are all on this table right here. So as you can see, we've got our micro tubing pipe cutter for cutting your 1/2-inch poly tubing, which I don't have out here, but it's 1/2 inch, some drippers or a dripper, button type dripper. In this case, there are other ones. This is a larger dripper that you can adjust the flow and it spreads out over, if you want several plants in an area, done almost like a mini little sprinkler, if you will. But and there's lots you can do. Do your research. Okay, this is a hole puncher into the poly tubing, not that kind. You cut that with like a pair of dikes or even the pipe cutter. This is an inline valve, pressure regulator, T fitting for the 1/2 inch, and an elbow for the 1/2 inch. Sometimes you don't actually need these, but sometimes they come in very useful. So, and then you got your barb connectors, T connectors for running your micro tubing to each individual plant, and the drippers, and however you want to do it. So we're going to go outside and we're going to see the kind of setup that I have going on. I will tell you this, that I've got really good success with my setup. My landscaping is on drippers, complete drip line going on my landscaping, and I have some soaker hoses going for my raised beds. So we're going to touch on that. So we're going to go outside. Okay, see you out there.
All right, guys, we're outside, okay, out of my garden. I wanted to just kind of give a quick tour, if you will, of what I've done on the drip line side of things. On my garden specifically, it's not very big, but I do have what I found to be soaker hoses running through my raised beds. It works out better for me. Drip line I did try at one point early on when I had these, and the water delivery was fine, but it was isolated. Some plants didn't get as much as they needed to, so I went with a soaker hose system this year. I installed that this spring, and I like the results much better. In fact, my previous home, I had a larger outdoor garden without raised beds, and I had soaker hoses running through all that, and it worked out really well. The plants loved it. So let's just take a quick walk over here. We'll look at some of the things I've got set up. I showed you a little bit already on some of the tools you're going to need and some of the other things, but let's just kind of take a quick tour, okay? Okay, guys, we're over here where I've got my faucet coming out of the wall and the side of my house here on the garden side of things. And basically I've got right down here, this is the hose feeding my garden, the 2 raised beds. I've got a pressure regulator and basically it's kind of an anti-siphon setup so that water can't go back into my water supply that I drink and that kind of thing. So don't want that water that's stagnant a lot of the times when it's not running going back in there. Same type of setup as if you would have if it was your sprinkler system, which I also have on the other side of the house, which we can get into some other time, but that has its own anti-siphon valve, which is much larger. But that's what this is. Now, sometimes it's really good to put a timer on this. And what it does is you can set a day and time or whatever for however many long. It's kind of like an irrigation timer, but it would be strictly for a hose. And basically you set it, you put some batteries in it, it runs battery operated, and if you want it to run for every other day for 15 minutes in the morning or something like that, it'll do it. And it'll do it all on its own, and it'll shut off on its own, come on its own. You don't have to worry about anything. Now, I don't have that set up here. I do have one, but I haven't done that yet. I basically just turn my phone on, set the timer on my phone for whatever it might be. The alarm goes off on my phone because I'll be inside doing something, then I come back here and I shut it off. So that's what I've been doing lately. So you do it however way you want, but this is this coming off the house here. Okay, so I just turn this on, I flip my valve, and off it goes. So I'll do that right now, and then we'll take a look and see how it looks. Okay. All right, so got the water running now, and you can see I've got my hose coming from the house right here, okay? And then what happens is it goes into this fitting and it's teed off. I did tee off this section. This section's gonna be, is capped off. It's not being used for anything at the moment, but it will be. I'm gonna put more lines for the blueberries I planted and my fruit trees on this side, but this other side takes off, goes that way, to my 2 raised beds. Okay, we're over here right in between my raised beds, and hopefully you can see this okay, but I've got part of the line teed off right down here, okay, and then it comes up here to an elbow. Let's get this guy out of the way, you can kind of see that right in here. This elbow takes off to 1/2-inch poly tubing, and it goes down my raised bed. On the other side, over here, I have the same exact thing for this bed. So this one's feeding my strawberry bed, which you can see here, and then my tomatoes, which in a previous video I did mention that I'm going to get rid of the tomatoes. They won't be there next year. It's going to be all strawberries in this bed because they took over. So and I want a whole bed of just strawberries. But anyway, so what I've got down here, if we can get in here and see, it'll actually look better, get a better idea right here. Take a look at this. So if we get down in here, you're going to see, here's my soaker hose, okay? And it's wound through this entire bed, okay? I'll give you a quick tour here of the bed. And you can see that hose, and it's running all the way through there, and then it stops, and I just capped it off. But this hose is giving me water, obviously, at a nice, even distribution for the most part. The only spots you have to watch, some spots are a little bit heavier than others, okay, and those are usually right where it comes from the 1/2-inch poly tubing. Right out of that tubing into the soaker hose tends to be the most predominant section of water coming out of the soaker hose itself. But for the most part, yeah, it works really well. So I've got this dialed in, and as you can see, it's just running through here. I've got carrots, I've got some onions going, and then over here I've got some potatoes. So I planted 4 potatoes on this end. Already took care of one. I've got a second one, or a 5th one that I put in kind of midsummer so I could have a later season crop. So that's that guy right there. So anyway, it doesn't matter. Drip system for your garden beds. My opinion, best way to go, soaker hoses. Okay? And man, can't go wrong. But the individual drippers do work as well. But I like the soaker hose method. Works for me. Hey guys, we're out front. I've got my drip line and my irrigation system on the landscaping, and I wanted to quick show you that as well. I don't do soaker hoses out here. It's a little bit different, but I do have some sprayers, okay, that I put here in this bed, and I've got this poly tubing, micro tubing here, coming to sprayers. The reason I did sprayers on this one, these fan out and spray, and I can adjust that pattern, and they hit this entire bed of wildflowers that I've got going on. So as you can see, it's a pretty decent size setup. And I've got 2 that are gonna take care of this. So that's one way of doing things. And then if you come over here, what I've got going on in this, there's a lot more going on than just this, but here's just a small plant. I do have a dripper on this hiding down here underneath the mulch. Delivering water to this guy, and it's on an individual button dripper. So that guy has its own drip, that guy has its own drip, you know, and it goes on and on and on. So drip line for your landscaping and individual bushes, okay, like this and everything else you see out here in my landscape, everything is on a drip line, okay, everything. Super easy to install. You can't go wrong. Trying to hand water stuff like that when you have a lot, boy, is that a pain. It takes a lot of time. So my opinion, best thing to do is to install an irrigation system, a drip line that ideally, when I first started, I had it set up where I would just open a faucet manually, time it myself, turn it off. Now there were times where I would forget, okay, and it kept going and going and going. And what did I have? I had basically the next day this flood of water because I forgot to turn it off. So I now have my entire landscaping drip line system set up on my I have an irrigation system timed. So I go in and I go, hey, you know, I want you to go for 15 minutes. And so it does it. So it's all set up with my sprinklers as well for my back piece of grass that you can see over here, which was installed this last summer. That was fun. What a project that was. Trenching, digging the trenches and laying down piping and everything else. So the fun part for that is going to be just getting all down. So I did mine in sections as I did my front landscaping. I did, you know, this part, ran it, capped it off. Okay. And you cap it off. I'll show you real quick. You cap it off like this. Hopefully you can see this. Okay. But this guy is capped off. Okay. He's leaking a little bit, but you basically bend the line. There's a special fitting you put on there and it stops the flow. Okay. So what I was doing out there was I was installing my line, and for the landscaping I did have, and knowing I had a lot more to go, I'd cap it off like I just showed you, and then leave it and let it do its thing for the plants I did have. Then I would add more plants, add more whatever, landscaping rock and all that, take that fitting off, dial it right into the line, and run more tubing, more drip lines, small drip lines, and, you know, the drippers to the new plants I installed, and then, you know, rock it or whatever, and then cap off another section at the end of that. So I have quite a bit going on actually on that one setup. So if your pressure is good enough, you can do quite a bit on just one long line, and that's what I've done. So I've got some more of that to do actually, because I put more plants in this last spring and summer. They still haven't gotten on the drip line just yet, but so I've been hand watering those, but I enjoy doing that too, so that's not a big deal. But anyways, I hope that helps. Your drip line and your irrigation, you know, this is all for beginners. You know, I'm no expert. I want you guys to just pick up tips and tricks that I've learned over the years, something like that. I hope it really helps you. If you have any comments or anything, leave them below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Okay, see you guys.